I mean, one reason we distribute carpets from you.
We have a general representative in Japan. The thing is, so why are we doing this with vegetable dyes?
Which car is going to be the vintage car which everybody wants to drive in the future? What is your first memory of carpets and rugs at all?
When my father had his warehouse and there were stacks very, very high with full of carpets. 7,000 people that are still involved in the manufacturing.
Welcome to Studio Alfombras, the podcast where we introduce entrepreneurs, business owners, but also special personalities. And today it's my sheer pleasure to welcome you here, Ramin Zollanvari.
Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure having you here. We know each other, we have a collaboration for many, many years, yes. And we're just growing tighter and tighter together. We've been together on many trips. We've been to Maison Objet, the one and only designer fair really in Europe, which counts these days. And it's a sheer pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so much. Nice to be here.
First of all, I would like to say a few words about who you are.
Okay.
You are the sixth generation carpet manufacturers out of Iran.
Right.
And tell me a little bit about your background.
Sure. You already said it's a family business. We go back for about 150 years. In the beginning, it was just trade, and then later it started to with my grandfather, who then started to build up the whole production chain in Iran. And it's quite special because it's not a very easy place to produce. There is various obstacles that you have to overcome if you want to sustain a very, well-working machine in terms of the whole chain that needs to work perfectly. About myself, I'm approaching my 40s now. I have a daughter, I'm married. I've spent 10 years in the Far East, namely in China, where I lived and worked also for Zollanvari. And I came back in the year 2020 to beautiful Switzerland, where I was born and where I also grew up. And that's a little bit my background.
So tell me, what does it mean for you historically to be from such a family? Because you kind of bridge Persian culture and Swiss culture.
Right.
What does that mean on a daily basis for you?
I think the first thing that jumps into my mind is basically to keep an open mind, because when you are used to a certain working mentality or working ethics, people, generally speaking, start to try to portray other people in the same way, to expect things that work in a different way though. So to keep an open mind is very important, especially if you know that people sometimes respond a little bit more slow, or they take a little bit more freedoms in what they do. So this is basically important, that you have an open mindset when you deal with different countries in general. Now this is basically touching upon the production part. Now the other part is, I feel it's very important to be able to, talk to different people on different levels. Obviously, we have a lot of different religions, we have a lot of different, backgrounds, and in working in our international team is basically the spirit what Zollanvari is about, which is about inclusion. It's about people working together and trying to achieve something really fascinating. Yeah.
I agree with that as well. Knowing you and your family, you're very international.
Right.
You travel a lot, I remember.
Yes.
But tell me, what is your first memory of carpets and rugs at all? Because I imagine you've grown up almost inside of a carpet.
Right. Yeah, well, not really inside, but yeah, you're right, for sure on them.
Yeah.
So one of my earliest memories is basically when my father had his warehouse, and there were stacks very, very high with full of carpets, and we had these different piles where we would jump from one pile to the other pile. That is one of my earliest memories, when we were always very excited to visit the warehouse and to be able to play there, because it was just all very soft. If you fell down, it didn't hurt because it was
a big playground.
It was a huge
kids.
playground, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's one of my earliest memories, that we really were always very excited to visit our dad, and to
I
play
can
there.
hear from your words you're already carrying a lot of weight also from the carpets from previous generations.
Right.
Is there something you like to protect for future generations?
Oh, absolutely. If you, okay, this is a very big and important topic for me. 30 years ago, let's say in the 60s, almost the natural colors, for example, almost vanished in Iran. And it was actually because of the effort of my grandfather, who protected the vegetable dyes from being extinct, or so that we can protect it and keep the knowledge within the community. Now, we could have kept it within the family, of course, which would have been much better for us. However, it was at the time when the nomadics already started to use chemicals to dye their wool. And what we did is we took the master dyer, who this is also kept within his family, so he's also a generational dyer, and we sent him to university to teach again young people how the process of vegetable natural dyeing is being made, in order to spread the knowledge so that it's not forgotten.
Perhaps for our listeners, you can explain maybe vegetable dye stuffs. What does that actually mean? What are they made of?
Right.
Are some dyes actually from abroad, or is everything made in Iran? Maybe you can share a few words about that.
Sure. So we only have one color, one plant that we have to import, which is indigo. Mm-hmm. It's natural indigo, as the name already suggests. It comes from India. Mm-hmm. Which we use for blue, by the way. Mm-hmm. However, all the other colors, they are sourced locally. And in the whole production chain, everything we do is made in Iran. It's local, it's locally produced, and we really do it with a lot of love and care. So this is very important to me. And coming back to your question about the protection, it is pressure, of course. I mean, you mentioned 6 generations. This means that the life achievements of 5 generations are on my shoulders, right?
That's what I meant, with a lot of weight on your shoulders.
You are right, so there is that weight for sure. However, if you have great people that support you, like you, for example, then this weight feels a bit lighter, because I believe in what we do, and I know that we can spread these kind of products to different corners of the world, and to get people excited about this very unique product. That is really something honest. It's a very nice and fair product as well.
Is there one thing you would say, you were speaking about your previous generations, but one thing you changed in your generation specifically? So
that's a good question. I don't think I just changed something by myself, because a lot of the changes that I instigated is then changed. There's a lot of people involved, so it's not just me changing something, you know what I mean? But of course, we try to become more efficient, and that's something that every generation has to do. Now, the production chain we don't want to change, because we have to keep it as it is in order to protect it, because it is already very efficient. However, what we have done now is, for example, we have done a lot of work to digitalize, to become more visible online. We have a better distribution system, talking about within the European Union, for example, that we have boots on the ground there. And then, because Switzerland is not part of the European Union, we also have our distribution network here. So basically, I would say logistics, these facilities that are important to be able to distribute it. But then a lot of content creation, and also the digital aspect in talking about our brand. I would say this is what we have now pretty strongly worked on.
We both know we're living in a fast-moving world. Technologies everywhere.
Yes.
We support it together. The augmented reality, which we might talk a little bit later on.
Right.
I feel like a lot of people probably imagine carpets why are they still made by hand?
Right.
One could have machine-made carpets, but we both still believe in handmade carpets.
Yes.
Why do you believe still in handmade carpets?
Well, because I know how many people are involved in it, and it's different. Of course, nowadays everybody shops in the internet, and you just click on one button, and then basically you get the product delivered a few days later at your door. But if you make a rug, every single step is handmade. This means when they share the wool in spring, which is also, every step is connected to different seasons as well. So when you collect the wool, you spin it by hand. Now, it can be an experienced spinner, or it can be a less experienced, a young person that is not very familiar with it. And I've tried that. It's very difficult to make a very consistent thread, right? There it starts already with that. And then you have the coloring and the dyeing. And if you leave the wool too long in the dyeing pot, you have a less good result than, it depends on which shade you want, obviously. But so every step there is a person, an expert involved, and this person is the expert of his field, because this is what he knows, this is what he or she does. And this is basically what I find fascinating. It's not just a machine that just creates a fabric. This is
or a pattern.
Yeah. This is it's an art. It's a person that sits there and decides when to change the color in order to make a certain pattern, as we see here in our background, right? So I think this way you will never get the same rug twice. Every piece is unique in the whole world, and I think this is what is exciting about this.
So, if I may say, it's the handmade aspect that
Yes.
people put their personal kind of touch to it.
They do.
And I think this is also something in today's world which gets harder and harder to explain.
Yes.
Why is this rug different to the other? Why it differs in size? What do you think colors matter in rugs?
Well, they're the essence. That's so important. So what happens is you already have this kind of, we call it abrash. It's the ground, the basic color of the wool. Wool is not just beige. It has little gray tones in it. It has different shades.
Yeah.
Thank you. This gives the whole carpet life. Now, if you dye it, it will look in a certain way. It looks better. It looks different. Some colors are very intense. Some are a little bit more subtle. But they're the essence. And the thing is, so why are we doing this with vegetable dyes? It's because you can never get the same effect, this kind of living effect with chemical dyes. It's just different. And when you see the two products next to each other, I'm sure you feel the same way. It's just worlds apart, even though they might look similar.
I find it's also the pile which is important, the material, of course. I think color, design, texture, those are like the main kind of pointers.
Yes.
What I also would like to know from you, Ramin, is how, you were talking about logistics earlier on. How could one imagine how a carpet is being made from start to finish? Because we have delivery times which are longer as usual. I don't think we do the Amazon Prime same-day delivery. We wish, but I think to look forward to a delivery is also something.
Yes.
And we have quite long lead times. Maybe you can tell to our listeners and our viewers, what does it take to actually make a carpet? And can you maybe, in a few brief words, just explain the steps onto the way we make rugs with Zollanvari in this time and age, and from start to finish, how that works?
Of course. So as I already mentioned, it starts in spring usually with shearing the sheep. Then they collect the wool. They spin the wool into threads, right? We collect those threads. We send it to our dyeing facility. First the basic colors of the wool are being separated. And then also the qualities, of course, there is finer wool and there is rougher wool. Then it's going to be prepared to dye for the dyeing processes, meaning if you want to get this red, we know exactly which percentage of what plant we have to apply into a dyeing pot in order to achieve this kind of red. or this kind of yellow. And this is important because there are trend colors. Even we don't ignore trends. So there is certain trends in colors. Now, of course, we know we can sell this color in that region a bit better, or this other color in this country a bit more. So this is how we basically steer it. After the dyeing, we take the wool out of the pot, we dry it, and the UV rays are very important too, because they finish the dyeing processes. And then we send the wool to our nomadic weavers. Now, when I say nomadic people, they are members of the Qashqai people, which is a nomadic tribe in southern Iran. They are not the typical, if you hear the word nomadic, you think about herds and people moving in tents around. Some of them, they still migrate twice a year from summer to winter, from the summer quarter to their winter quarter. They move always in spring and in autumn, right? Because of the snow or the different seasons that they have to survive. So that's why they have to move twice a year. However, some of them already settled in villages, and these they still feel themselves as member of the Qashqai tribe, of the Qashqai people, but they're not moving nomads. They're settled nomads. So they usually make our bigger sizes, because if you think about it,
the loom has to be made according to the requirements.
The size that you want to make, exactly. And then they make the carpet, patterns, the carpet weaving that takes time. We collect the carpet after it's being woven. We take it back into our facilities. We do a first quality check, and then we send it from the south of Iran to the north, to the capital city, which is called Tehran. This is where we do the finishing. And finishing means we first start to burn the backside of the rug, which takes away a lot of the thick wool or stuff that you don't really want to have in the rug. It's a form of cleaning, actually. And then we shear it. So then it's basically the pile is being trimmed all to one thickness, right? And this is a very difficult part too, because if you have a bad day and you're angry and you push too much, you're shearing the pile down, and you can destroy it.
Do this by hand, or,
yes.
or you're using a machine?
It is a machine, but you do it with pressure.
Okay.
So if you push down too much, then of course the machine shears down the pile that you actually then you can do in the rug like that. So we have always a very experienced person that is doing the same thing every day. But he likes it actually. He doesn't feel at ease if somebody else.
Once or twice, or how does it work?
So every rug is just once being shared. This is or trimmed. And after the trimming, we send it into the part where we wash the rugs. So
it gets washed.
It gets washed
after it's actually trimmed.
Yes.
Okay. And how high is the pile when you get those rugs off the loom?
So usually it's about this thick, and then after the trimming, it's the thickness like. It depends if it's the super fine or the fine weave, because that's also connected to
the design gets more clear.
Exactly.
Right? I imagine that's
that's exactly how it is. If you leave the pile for too long, then it is not very visible, so you have to shear it. But if you can't shear it too much, because then it loses its touch. It loses its softness.
If you go to the next step, what's happening next? So it's get washed, and then
then we dry it.
You dry it, yeah.
And what happens with wool when we dry it, or after washing? It shrinks. It gets out of form, so it needs to be stretched again. Yeah. And this is actually also why we always say we can't guarantee 200 by 300. Right? There is always going to be a slight difference in terms of the sizes. So we have, for example, if you have 3 meter, we make the rug a little bit, longer. So it's probably going to be 3 meter 12 for it, let's say, because it shrinks after the washing. And then when we stretch it again, we can't get it back to 3 meter and 12. So it will probably then be around 305. So we lose a few centimeters after the drying process. So when we stretch it, the final rug is then for example, 305 instead of 300.
And do you air dry the rugs, or do you have a special facility with fans?
No, it's because in Iran we have very strong sun rays, so we basically just place them on the ground on pebble stones, which then heat it from beneath, and it's then easy to dry them. And then we take them, we stretch the rugs, then we have to do the side binding, and we also don't have fringes. Our rugs, the fringes basically when they're being cut short and then sewn into the rug.
The original Gabbeh rugs, because you coined the term Gabbeh as well.
Yes.
You can tell us perhaps also a little bit about that later, but perhaps let's just fast forward a little bit. So you have them off the loom, they're dried in the air in the open air.
Yeah.
And then you stretch them, and what happens next?
And then finally, we do a final quality check. After we finish the sides, then we just see if there is, if everything is according to our standards. And then we put it into a warehouse, and then logistics come into play.
And tell me, once the rug gets to Switzerland or anywhere else in the world, what happens next?
Well, then we start to invite our customers. So we used to be only wholesalers and distributors. So when we get a new shipment, we know sometimes we have orders in them, which are custom-made, bespoke orders. This is also a service that we do. Yeah, if you want to get a measured rug, we can also do that for you. So we have people that collect those orders then for their clients usually, or they just come and pick out what they like and what they know they can sell. And then we start to distribute it accordingly.
And just for our listeners, how long does this take from start to finish for a rug?
So if you think about the standard size, which is 2 meters by 3 meters, we talk about 6 months lead time.
So you can be very happy when you get your rug after that time.
Exactly.
And one thing I noticed, and that's also a reason why we started the collaboration together, I come from a very classical rug background where I know classical rugs. But what kind of caught my attention with you guys is really the sheer quality of the designs. Because you don't just do any designs. You have a catalog continu. It's not a catalog which is finished, so to speak. And I just noticed the sheer quality of your designs is really, really amazing and outstanding. And seeing this with the quality of your carpets kind of blend together, I think you call it transitional at times. Can you tell us, how do you get to your designs and how do you pick your designers? And I think you even had a prize, or several times you won some awards for your... Can you tell us a little bit about the design?
Sure.
The design department at Zollanvari?
Yes, of course. Well, that is basically firmly in the hands of my father, who is also still involved in business. It's his passion, and he designs a lot of the designs himself. Inspiration usually for him, as well as for the nomadic people, is landscapes or natures, right? Nature in general. So when you have, for example, a close-up from a tree, or you have, we do whole landscapes that are freely made by nomadic people. A lot of these patterns that we use, actually, they have deep roots. We didn't just invent those. They already existed in some form or the other, right? But we just try to give it a modern touch with nice colors, or with a little bit more simplistic design and minimalist design. So it has a nice combination of a design that has deep cultural roots combined with certain modern touch to it. But then also we have a lot of collaborations with design studios, external design studios as well. So we work with So Far So Near in Milano, for example. We have a very nice collaboration with them. We create new collections together. So we have our own collections as well as these collaborations that we do. And then you have nomadic people that make designs freely. We have that as well. So for example, they see a landscape that they really like, they sit down, and instead of the painting, they would just actually then weave this landscape into a rug. And that's then, of course, again, a one of a kind.
I was very taken by your glitch collection.
Right.
I know a little bit about glitch, that art movement,
Yes.
because I grew up in the 1980s, and
Right.
I grew up with Max Headroom, which was like the essential glitch kind of person one
Right.
would imagine. And I do remember that I've managed to actually sell quite a few of those and
Yes.
offer them to our clients. And what I also would like to point out is, perhaps you can tell us a little bit. We collaborate with the augmented reality
Yes.
application because of my background with having been at the demo scene of the Amiga. We like technology, and the nice thing now is we can also bring you a design, and
Yes.
we can make the augmented reality models from it. Perhaps you can tell us how that works for our viewers and listeners, that this is something quite unique we both offer together here.
Right. I think it's very important that people can see the rug in within their own home or within the area that they can, that they want to place it. So what happens is we get those designs that we already have in the catalog, and then we give them basically to you, and you change them into a format where it can be applied into the augmented reality.
Well,
but I'm sure you are more the expert in that
yeah,
field
well,
than I am.
think what I wanted to get to is we can bring you designs as well. It's not just that the catalog is fantastic, but I don't think we should call it a catalog, because it's more a selection of what can be done.
Yes.
And maybe for our listeners and viewers, it's also important to know that every design which we actually bring, you will render it, you will make a drawing, as we call it, and for us, we have the technical know-how to pull that up to a format which can be used in a Android or a Apple smartphone environment, and you can place them directly into it. I think this is something I'm quite excited about in the future.
It is exciting, yeah.
And I think it also bridges a little bit the old and the new. And I'm very excited that we could collaborate in such a way, because I don't think any other company making rugs has that possibility, and it's due to your designs, and also the experts. Yeah. And I think your father, Reza, I like him very much, by the way.
Thanks.
He also looks at the design, and I remember once he said, we check if it fits a carpet or not.
Yes.
Perhaps you can share a few words about that.
So that is not every design that looks nice works in a rug. That's very important to understand. Rug designing is not just like a painting where you have a lot of details. It's not about the details, it's a combination. Sometimes a rug design has to be three-dimensional. It doesn't have to be flat, right? It wouldn't look nice in a rug, and this is basically the point that is difficult to understand. That this is basically why we need people like my father, for example, with this experience in rug designing, who know exactly how the final result will look like in a rug. But we have had this request sometimes also from designers that say, listen, I have this client, he would like to have this design bespoke in this size, which we can do. But sometimes we have to get back to the designer and tell them, listen, it's nice that you contact us, but let us do our interpretation of that design, because it's not one-on-one exactly the way that you picture it. And then you can still decide whether you want to go forward or not. So that's one of the services that we provide as well.
I do remember this very much in classical rugs as well, especially with pictorial rugs, which means depictions of animals, of people. I do remember my father always said to me, look how the faces are. Are they smiling? Are they good? Are they looking natural? Or does it look like a children's drawing, so to speak?
Right.
And this is something which is important. And I also remember once an Indian manufacturer told me, a rug needs to smile at you. It needs to have a positive kind of face to it. And also the frame of the rug or the border would have been very important. Obviously, with your rugs, it's different because they don't have classical borders as such. But talking about borders, you're called Zollanvari International. You're not just Zollanvari Switzerland.
No.
And I mean, one reason we distribute carpets from you is because we want to push the Swiss market a little bit and be like, you don't need to just have a white wall with a red carpet. You can put anything you like.
Yes.
Perhaps you can tell us about your international presence. I think you also have in Asia, you have a big representation.
Yes.
In the intro, you were telling us you lived in China as well.
True.
Perhaps you can share a few words about that.
Sure. So we have a general representative in Japan. We already work with the Carpet Gallery for 2 generations. That is basically one nice collaboration that we have in East Asia. Then we have presence within Iran itself. We have a lot of retail showrooms which are ours. So we do the retailing there.
You sell to local Iranians your rugs.
That is,
well, that's the best endorsement I think one could give if you
right.
manage to sell locally, produce, and also export it.
Yes,
wonderful.
Because people there, they know about rugs and they appreciate high quality. Japan the same, by the way. A lot of Japanese, after the Meiji restoration, they lost a lot of the traditional handicrafts and they just did move into mass production. And these traditional jobs that they were able to keep taught them the appreciation for handmade things in general. And this is why we sell our rugs there very well, because every step is handmade. And once they understand how it's made, they really like it. So that is why we are very strong in Japan. But we are also present in Southern Africa, for example. A cousin of mine has his company down there, and we are more or less over Europe, and that is more or less it.
So we spoke about your kind of background, how many generations you've been involved with rugs, the name Zollanvari. You coined the term Gabbeh because Gabbeh was not a term before, and I think your ancestors, they had a commercial idea that this is actually selling quite well abroad, and you termed that you coined the term Gabbeh.
Yeah.
Now, one question I have is, just to give our listeners a kind of an idea what kind of magnitude you're looking at, how many people are involved in the carpet trade for Zollanvari International at its peak and maybe nowadays?
Sure. So we used to have 15,000 weavers in the south of Iran. So we are one of the bigger manufacturers in that region. However, this number has plummeted recently. Well, it has been a process, of course. It's not that recent. But I would say now we have around 7,000 people that are still involved in the manufacturing, which sounds...
7,000 people.
Yeah.
That's almost a town, so to speak, in Swiss terms, right?
Yeah. Right. However, we really appreciate it that we can keep a lot of people within that trade. We always put a very strong emphasis in education, because what happened was a lot of the nomads, they didn't have any education. They were illiterate because they couldn't go to school because of their lifestyle. So what the government started doing, and what we also continue to support, is to send teachers with tents that followed the nomads and that were able to educate their children en route during they were on the move, right? So that's something that we did. Now, of course, we cut our own flesh a little bit by doing this, because if they suddenly could, pursue education, they could also pursue different careers. Ethically speaking, it's the right thing. However, everybody should be able to make up their own mind whether they want to stay in the carpet, field, if they want to continue to weave, or if they want to become a teacher or go into engineering. I think it's everybody's choice. However, this declining trend in people that are in the rug field is not just a trend in Iran, it's happening in all of the major production countries, like Turkey, Nepal, India, China, everywhere. Young people are not really willing to, continue the rug making tradition.
I like your philanthropic kind of attitude towards rugs. I think it's really important to give back, especially you have a time where you have to produce and make money, but it's also a time to give back to society and the people, of course. And knowing you and your family, I know how much you have empathy towards others, and you always want that everybody gets enough to eat, a slice of the cake, even more than the cake, a lot of sweets. I do remember many memorable moments where I've seen that aspect of your family, which is very strong. Which brings me almost to the next kind of topic, because we look at rugs and scarcity. And can you tell us, like, a rug today from you, made by a designer, could that be a masterpiece or a work of art tomorrow?
Of course. Of course. I mean, it's if you have a famous designer, and we do limited editions. So if this is a famous designer that has a lot of followers or people that appreciate their art, then of course the rug will increase in value. However, I don't really like to sell our rugs with the angle to say it will increase in value, because that was the sales angle of the 70s and 80s. And at that moment, the market was very high, so the rugs were very expensive. However, a lot of people, they were disappointed once they realized when they wanted to sell their rugs, which is now, for example, a lot of people, they want to sell their classical rugs. And I'm sure you agree with me that then they start to, be disappointed when they hear they just get a fraction of the price that they used to pay. But they were promised that these rugs would increase in value. The problem, or in my view, the issue is that it's a supply and demand question. Suddenly you have a lot of nice old classical carpets, and they were made very well, so they last a long time, right? But now the market is full with these kind of products. Of course, then the prices plummet, and nobody really, few people compared to the 70s or 80s are willing to buy classical rugs. A lot of people, they like to have something modern that fits into their, lifestyle, into their designs. So that's why I'm a bit careful with that term that it will increase in value. However, I agree with you that there are limited collections that are valuable, if they're made or designed by a certain designer. Yes.
I hope you don't mind, you don't feel any offense if I say this, but I do actually tell my customers often when they ask about investment of rugs that you could compare it to a car when it becomes a vintage or a collectible car.
Right.
You have so many cars this time and age which gets launched every year.
True.
But which car is going to be the vintage car which everybody wants to drive in the future? And usually I compare it to a car, because a rug is there to be used.
Yes,
it's like a solid wooden floor.
Right.
It has a usage, and a car is the same, right?
Yes.
And you use it every day, and some increase in value, and most of them, they are just at the end, they're scrap. But I think with a rug, because they're so long-lasting, especially handmade rugs compared to, say, a machine-made rug.
Of course.
So for that reason, I would say a handmade rug is always the better choice. And
I agree. And it's a cheaper choice too if you look at it in the long term, because it's longevity. Let me get quickly back to the term Gabbeh, which actually also touches upon that. It's quite funny. Gabbeh is the word, a local expression for thick or rough, and
solid.
And solid, right? And that is basically why these rugs are being made. They were being used by the nomadic people to sleep on. That's why the first generation of Gabbehs, they were this thick, because they had to be very soft that people could sleep on them.
Like a mattress.
Like a bed actually, or like a mattress. And obviously nomadic people, they couldn't carry furniture with them around because they were too heavy. So they were trying to use as many textiles as possible so that they could carry them around. So they would have different bags for salt, for tobacco, for stuff to put their spoons or cutleries in. They would use different textiles for all different aspects of life. And this is the origin where these rugs come from. So they are still being made in the sense that they have to be used. And I always enjoy watching people when we have an exhibition that are careful to stand on the rugs that are, right, you know that feeling, right? But then we always encourage them and tell them, listen, you have to actually walk on them because they have to be used. This is what they're being made for. But then, of course, I understand that people want to be respectful, and it's always a very fun and nice interaction, I would say, people.
Let's look a little bit into the future.
Sure.
50 years from now, where will the carpet trade be? The handmade carpet trade of Zollanvari?
I'm not, sadly, I didn't bring my crystal ball, but in my view, I think, looking at the trends at the moment, I think the production will continue to decline. Now, we already pay 30 to 40% over the market to keep our weavers, you know, busy, to keep them engaged, to also be able to guarantee that we get the best weavers available.
And that they don't change careers.
Exactly, that it's also sustainable for them. We understand that we have to guarantee them their original way of life in order to keep them, you know, excited about what they're doing, and not we can't, you know, squeeze down the price so that they then move away from what they have been doing and then do something else. So, having said that, this is just prolonging the whole process of, you know, decline, I have to say, because people are less willing to go into the field. So I think in 50 years, to answer your question, the handmade rugs will be very, very high in price because there is not a lot of supply. If demand remains steady or even the same, then I would say that, you know, bespoke or custom-made rugs, they will be much more expensive than now. And I still think that the machine mades, they are going to be then the mass market product that everybody will go to. For us, it's not an easy thing to say because, of course, our hearts are with the handmade rugs. However, I think this is the reality that we have to look at, and it's the same with cars. You were mentioning cars before. You have which are the most let's put it this way. In the beginning, all cars were being handmade because this is just how you produce.
Assembled by hand.
Exactly.
Yes, of course.
And now you have the assembly lines. Everything is being automated more and more even. And which cars are still being handmade? We all know the brands. We don't need to mention them, but we have the brands in our minds. Now, what do these brands cost these days? It's the same with rugs. There is still these people that appreciate handmade rugs.
So your optimism is that they are still handmade rugs will have a certain value. I'm not going to compare it to real estate at this stage, but they're still going to have the value.
They will.
And I think your biggest concern is just a fluctuation or people leaving the carpet trade to do something else.
Yeah, for sure.
Am I right?
No, I agree. And then also you have then other factors such as inflation, which is a big contributing factor. Sadly, in you know, if your raw materials are getting more and more expensive, you have to raise the prices, and that is just a reality as well.
We're almost at the end already at this talk, but it's been very interesting. We now have a quick fire round of questions. We usually do it at the end, where we ask you questions, and if you can just answer them quickly, one or two sentences. And are you ready?
I am.
Okay. So one word which represents the Zollanvari rug spirit.
Creativity.
Wool or silk?
Wool.
Natural dyes or synthetic fibers?
You know the answer, natural dyes.
Tradition or experimentation?
To have to choose one, because I think they're both important. Yeah, we do both.
The biggest misunderstanding in handmade rugs?
Child labor. We still get that a lot, that people think they're being made by children. Very important, our rugs are made by nomadic women. It's not made by children, but I would say that's a big...
Well, we heard your philanthropic efforts which you make, and also knowing about Iran, how they treat their people between themselves. I don't have a shadow of a doubt that there's any child labor involved in your rugs.
No, we can guarantee that, yeah.
One quality a collector or one aspect a collector should look at when looking at rugs in general?
That's a hard one. Well, I would say design, for sure. it has to be a nicely designed carpet or rug. Now it depends which kind of field he's collecting, but it has to be a symbiosis of colors, in my view. It has to be, the balance has to be right.
Last question. Finish the sentence. A great carpet is?
Fully handmade by Zollanvari.
Thank you. Lastly, is there anything which you would like to share with us about this conversation which we haven't spoken about?
Yeah, I think we touched pretty much all the aspects of what we wanted to talk about. I'm still, trying to make it to the 6th generation within our family. I'm not sure if this is my choice. It's not my choice, obviously. But I really hope that we can keep this field alive and all of these people that are passionate in what they're doing, ready and engaged. This is my biggest hope and also my dream for the future, that we can spread beauty in a time when the world is not very beautiful, sadly. So that's why I enjoy doing the rugs so much. Yeah.
Ramin Zollanvari, I wanted to thank you really from the bottom of my heart. It endorsed also my strength in our collaboration, having you here on the podcast. I learned so much, and it endorsed my belief also in your company. Thanks. I do know that your company creates wonderful things, has created in the past and will in the future. And it's a pleasure having you on this podcast.
Thank you so much for being here, Benji.
I hope we will create carpets together and distribute them in the world over. I'm now going to say a few words to our listeners. Thank you for tuning in again at Studio Alfombras. We will be there with next episode with a very interesting guest. Thank you for tuning in and sharing. And one last word to Ramin. Where can we find you? How do we get in touch with you?
So, preferably here at our Zollanvari flagship store in Zurich at the Schindlerstraße. I'm sure you can, display the address in Zurich.
We'll put the links below.
Yes, yeah. Or it depends which country you are in. Then look for Zollanvari. You can find close dealers on our website, and we will be very happy to welcoming you.
Thank you again, and tune in next time when it's Studio Alfombras by Teppichportal and NV Marketing. Bye-bye.